Hi there, my name is Jessica Crow. I'm the founder of Apogee and the host of Change Leader Insights. And today I have here with me Christy Ritchie. Christy, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Christy is the Director of Organizational Change Leadership at Stanford Health Care. I got connected to Christy through a friend, a mutual friend, and I'm really excited to have here on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about the importance of focusing on people, especially during change, which if you've been listening to this show for some time, you'll understand or know that this is a very key topic of conversation for many of the guests that come on the podcast. But Christy, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got to where you are, and then we'll dive into the topic.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you for inviting me to join you. This is such an honor. So, a little bit about myself. I have been working in change for we're pushing 30 years. I know I don't look my age at all. Anyway, and so many different areas of change. And I finally have, I have had the opportunity to work with a couple of different consulting firms. I have worked within organizations and just recently landed at Stanford Health Care in their supply chain organization, which has been a joy, just an absolute joy with the people that I get to work with and the difference that we're able to make with our patients. So, yeah, that's kind of what my journey has been like in short. I've done, advanced degrees. I have a doctorate in organizational leadership from Pepperdine,
Yeah.
an MBA from Colorado State. So done the whole education route, done the
Yeah.
whole hands-on route, and just really like bringing all of those elements together to help my clients, my colleagues navigate change the best
Yeah.
possible way.
Well, you're well prepared to do that based on your experience and your education. So you've got a very, I would say, passion or strong perspective
Yes.
on why it is so important to have people be a primary focus, especially during organizational change. But tell us a little bit more about that and maybe why it's, I would imagine, or not imagine, in my own experience and research, that part is the people side is often underestimated.
Overlooked.
Yeah,
Mhm.
overlooked and underestimated. So tell us a little bit more about kind of the people side being a driver when you make decisions and how you help your colleagues and your clients really think about the human impacts of any sort of choice that they're making from a strategy perspective all the way through the implementation phase.
Absolutely. So part of what you're alluding to is that anytime an organization, a team is undergoing any type of change, it doesn't matter if it's a change in leadership or you're implementing a brand new ERP system.
Mm-hmm.
In order for those things to take effect, for the change to actually take hold, you have to have adoption,
Mm-hmm.
buy-in from your
Mm-hmm.
team. So when we are overlooking, and I see this most often when we're talking about technology implementations or technology related changes,
Mm-hmm.
um, or mergers and acquisitions, another big area where the people are often overlooked. We're so focused on, from a business perspective, we're so focused on finding the right application, making sure it's
Mm-hmm.
customized to meet our business process flow, that we're very rarely thinking about how are people going to react to this change?
Mm-hmm.
How can we get their input? The people that are actually doing the job, how are we incorporating what we're hearing from them as the way they actually do the work, as opposed to the way, and this is a big one, as opposed to the way that the directors and vice presidents of the organization think
They
the
should be
work is
doing the
being
right.
done.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that our leaders have the very best intentions, but a lot of times they don't realize how long they have been away from the front line and
Mm-hmm.
what workarounds have been built in that we can actually, if we're having the conversation with people, we can really meet them where they are and help them help us to create a
Yeah.
system that's going to be the best that can be. So that's kind of my thought process on technology implementations. When it comes to mergers and acquisitions, where organizations are so frequently focused on the financial aspect.
Right.
What are the terms? How are we, what's the branding going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
that we very rarely think about how it's going to impact those individuals that are maybe looking at across the aisle and saying, okay, we are merging with company X, and there is someone with the same job title I have.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Yep.
And what when we don't think about those things and address them early on in the process, we see a lot of disengagement. We see a lot of turnover. We see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of loss of knowledge to the organization that can definitely have a detrimental impact overall. So that's kind of where the whole passion for people has come from, is just, starting my college education in psychology and then literally seeing it happen over and over and over again,
Right.
and just being like, wait, guys, we can actually
Can do
create,
better here.
we can do better. Yeah, we really
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Those two are really big, powerful examples of
Mhm.
when when the people side isn't thought of and how that can go sideways for organizations. As you were describing the technology piece, I was thinking about a client that I worked with a couple of years ago where exactly what you described, the directors and the VPs, they had a vision for what was going to be implemented and
Mhm.
how and why. And they, in fact, were intentional about not bringing the stakeholders into the conversation because they were worried it was going to create noise and delay the pace that they were trying to chart with getting close to go live. And of course, things blew up. And that's when they brought me in and they said, hey, how do we manage this? But to your
And
point,
what did you say,
yeah, I was
Jessica?
like,
What
we
did you
need to
say to
get,
them?
yeah, we have to get some end user feedback here. We have to have them be a part of the process
Exactly.
because the workarounds that you mentioned, they were so significant. They had been piecing things together, and just rolling out a new technology wasn't going to fix some of the manual processes and habits and behaviors. So yes, so that was a great example. M&A is so hard. It is
It
so
is.
hard. You were spot on. Your focus, many organizations are focused on the financials and the synergies. And then to your point, they think about all of those other people side impacts. We'll deal with that after the deal is done. It's confidential
People
up to
are
that point.
gone.
People are
Mhm.
gone. The ones you wanted to retain in particular, they're like, this is not for me.
Yep.
So yeah, being able to think about the change management aspects of M&A, of a technology implementation before or throughout the decision making process is so fundamental. And it kind of blows my mind, honestly, that we haven't figured this out yet. And I don't know where that stems from because there are a lot of people who have been trained in change management. But what do you think that disconnect? And maybe I don't know if you even have
Oh,
a
I have
perspective
it.
on this.
I
Yes.
do.
What is your okay? So why are we not doing this well still?
So one of the things that I have been touting and encouraging leaders to think about, anybody that has followed me for any length of time on LinkedIn, I feel like fundamental change management skill
Hmm.
sets, um, need to be a part of our standard leadership toolkit.
Hmm.
And I think that that's an oversight. We focus so much on managing people and communication skills, which they're not bad fundamentals. But I think
Yeah.
that we have an opportunity to really bring in our leaders and give them, because change management, honestly, it's not rocket science. It
Yeah,
really
exactly. It's
isn't.
far more simple than not. Yeah.
Exactly. And if we can give our leaders those skills from the get go, so that they're
Hmm.
thinking about how to communicate proactively, so they're thinking about how to prepare their teams
Hmm.
proactively, how to
Hmm.
have those tough conversations, and really then how to equip them with the tools that they're going to need to be successful and how to engage them on the journey. If
Yeah.
we equip our leaders with those basic skills, which all of them are just extensions of what we're already equipping leaders with,
Yeah.
they actually have the ability to get in front of this and really make a huge difference.
Yeah, that's an important message. And I think there's a misconception that if you go to business school, for example, you're equipped with to your point, management and communication. You understand how to lead people through change. And that's just not true. They're not diving into, I love that you started in psychology. I think you said, like, you're really
Yes.
starting to take a look at the neuroscience and the understanding of how humans react and respond and why. And so that is missing from the leadership development programs, many of them out there.
Yes,
So
yes.
I actually interviewed a woman last year who had talked about how she did some research where I believe it was top business schools and the absence of change management education as part of the core curriculum, which I found fascinating. I teach on the topic of change management. It's not called that as an adjunct faculty member, but it is an
Mm-hmm.
elective. And so, I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe integrating it even further upstream could address what you're describing and help nurture and cultivate new leaders, soon to be leaders, and on that pathway. But to your point, wow, we really need to do some work as it relates to the current leadership, where
Mm-hmm.
understanding change management so they can make better people informed decisions,
Exactly.
really be a value add, because we're missing that
Exactly.
in so many areas.
We are. And even something as simple, and I think this is a service that you actually offer, Jessica, but I think something as simple as consulting, just
Yeah.
having a coaching conversation
Yeah.
with someone that is a specialist in change management to prepare your leaders prior to taking on one of these projects. So that,
Yeah.
be proactive, think ahead. If you know that you're going to be asking your organization to undergo a simple change. You're going to
Hmm.
reorganize your leadership, or you want
Hmm.
to go through defining a new mission and vision for the organization. Bring in someone like yourself, Jessica, and actually have that conversation about how can we prepare our teams and meet them where they are so that this is a really amazing conversation with a lot
Yeah.
of input and a lot of buy-in and a lot of ownership. Gosh, imagine if you can actually take a change and increase the amount of ownership and dedication to your organization. Mind blown. And that's
Right.
all that you need to do is actually bring in
Yeah.
someone like you to come in and
Well, thank
help
you. I'm
prepare.
loving this plug. Thank you so much. Well, and Stanford Health Care is very lucky to have you with your
Oh,
knowledge
thank you.
base and understanding. So thank you for
Thank
that. But
you.
also I could imagine the impact that you're having with the experience and understanding that you have. You're sending ripples throughout the organization and really creating a capability, I'd imagine, based on that, because your passion for this is coming
Trying.
through. And in a very positive way. I think everyone wants to feel connected and a sense of ownership, like they belong. There's a higher
Yes.
purpose to what they're doing and how it all fits together. And I love that you're in a role where you can really drive and nurture that experience for your colleagues. That's incredible.
And coach the leaders. I mean, honestly, that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
it's it's almost a 360 wraparound, if you will.
yeah,
So the bigger the change, the more support you're going to need.
yep.
So, for example, Stanford Healthcare brought me in when they were doing a new ERP system, very specifically
Hmm.
in supply chain and finance. And it was a lot of traditional change, understanding the impacts, the changes that were going to impact the different audiences, standing up a change network, a full scale communication plan to
Hmm.
multiple different audiences. Long and short, it required, because of the magnitude of the project, it required a full team of individuals. We had a consulting firm supporting us,
Hmm.
in addition to bringing in people internally to manage it from the Stanford perspective.
Hmm.
That is on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum is really just kind of thinking ahead of, hey, we really want to see this change in culture, this change
Yeah.
in mission, this change in the way we work together, saying,
Mm.
hey, we want to prepare our leaders to do this. You may not need to bring in a full consulting team or an
Right.
internal change person, but
Yeah.
tap into the resources that are available to you, like Jessica and Apogee, and literally think through what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
That's what makes the difference, is
Yeah.
just paying
Having the
attention.
conversation. Yeah. Paying attention,
Exactly.
thinking
Hmm.
about the fact that there are going to be people that have to think, feel, behave differently. So, yeah,
So
Christy,
true.
this has been, yeah, you know a lot and you have a great perspective. And I love the message that we're putting out into the universe with this
Mhm.
conversation. I hope people who are in leadership roles listen and think, wow, am I doing those things that Christy's suggesting? Am I thinking about people in that way? because of the positive outcome of doing that and the change in, how the performance of the change they're implementing is going. So I love that you've been able to really make it clear how to go about that, how to think about that. Any other words of wisdom for people who are listening, things to think about, whether it's bringing somebody in to have the conversation, leveraging your internal team, building a team, having a larger team that includes lots of different perspectives, but anything else that would be, from the past 30 years of leading and guiding people and teams through transformation that you want to impart on viewers and listeners today?
I think that the number one thing that I would really like people to hear is that change is about people.
Mm-hmm.
The success of change is definitely about people.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, recognize that change management is so much more than just communication and training.
Mm-hmm.
It's about connecting with people on the front lines, talking to them, bringing them with you on the journey,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that you as a leader don't necessarily have all the answers, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot stress that enough. It's okay. Take their questions, do the research, get back to people. That's how you build trust.
Yeah.
Is by truly being present and with them and acknowledging that change is scary for you as a leader as well. Be human, be transparent. And when there are significant changes going on, sharing your uncertainty, but your dedication to the outcome actually will build more trust than trying to put on a facade that everything is fine. They can see through that really quickly. So just, I would honor where you are in your process, share that with people that you're working with. And I think that in and of itself will actually help you better lead your team through change.
Yeah. Thank
So
you. You've given a lot of leaders permission today to do that. I know I've worked with leaders and I've been that leader where you try to spin things favorably because you think you have to, you want to stay on the positive side. And what you're describing isn't going, down a path of fear. It's more of vulnerability and authenticity. And that really does resonate and helps people lead with more influence versus that authority piece. So
true.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christy. This has been a really informative conversation. I am so grateful that you took time out of your busy day. I'm wishing you so much success and all the individuals that you work with. I'm happy that they get to work with you because you're sending positive ripples throughout your organization. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with the Change Leader Insights community.
Thank you so much, Jessica. It's been an honor to be here.